All right, y'all. Welcome back into the LA Sports Brotherhood. It's me, Brian, here with my brother Matthew, and we are recording on day one of the winter meetings, and it was a very, very eventful one. Not only for the league, but for the Dodgers as well. So we're gonna start by talking about Juan Soto because we have to. But if you watched our previous videos, we talked about like the idea of him being a Dodger and how unlikely it was, but we kind of have to pursue. And I don't know how you feel about it, Matt, but my read of how the day kind of transpired was that the Dodgers also kind of felt like, I don't know how serious we want to be about him, but we can't be the Dodgers and not try to sign him, so we'll give him a contract that we want, and if he takes it, that's cool. That's kind of how the reporting came, like as it got into the later stages before his signing. It felt like the Dodgers were very steadfast. Like Heyman was getting his Boris quotes as like, oh, all the 4-team bidding war and the Dodgers are very behind on money, but we'll see what happens. Like that's kind of how it felt. Um, so I'll toss that to you. How do you think that they were starting to pivot away? I think Conforto being signed is kind of a hint, but how do you feel about him signing? First, again, with just not with the Dodgers, like if that's a disappointment to whatever, and then with the Mets, we can kind of get into that too because they were our NLCS opponent. So, how do you think this signing really shifts stuff for the Dodgers?
I don't think it really shifts anything because honestly, in my opinion, Friedman and Gomes and the Dodgers' plan was the plan wasn't to get Soto. Last year, the plan was to get Otani. That was number one. This, like you said, it was kind of just like a bonus. It's like, well, we kind of have to be, we have to offer him. We're the Dodgers, like you said. Let's offer him 600 mil, whatever. We know Cohen's going to do whatever he can to drive up that price close to damn near 800 million. And of
Yeah.
course, it happened. I'm sure the Dodgers, Friedman, Gomes agreed. This is a price. If it exceeds this, all right, have fun in New York, but we're not going to go there because we already have our plans. Basically, it was to me it was a bonus. As for the Mets, as for the league, it's really bad news for the Yankees. I think they were a team where it's like
Mm.
best pitcher in baseball, two of the three best hitters in baseball. That's why we're good. You lose one of those pieces, it's kind of going to crumble, in my opinion. We already saw they weren't good enough, weren't even close to us. And then now the Mets get better, who was the NLCS opponent. The World Series champions get better. You get worse. So a little tough for the Yankees. Good for the Mets, but at the same time, they're in the toughest division in baseball. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. And I mean, the Dodgers are at the top, and so the Braves are reloaded. Mets are reloading. I'm sure the Padres, Braves will do something. So yeah, NL's tough, but it doesn't really. This doesn't shake up the world like when Otani went to the Dodgers. And no, I'm honestly not upset, not sad. I'm sure none of the. I mean, I know none of the Dodger fans are mad.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority was we don't want Soto, we don't want Soto, we want Teoscar. And so, honestly, as soon as I saw Conforto, I was like, oh okay. We were actually together. We said, okay, yeah, Soto's not coming. That's what we expected. Sign Conforto, sign Trent, two big updates. The one we're all waiting on is Teoscar. I expect that to be done by the end of this week. If it's Friday and Teoscar's still not a Dodger, I think question marks start to appear, and I start to get a little worried. But
Yeah.
there is no I'm so. I guess my biggest takeaway from the Soto news is I'm so glad that it happened now because we can just get Teoscar. We don't have to play this game. Give Teoscar what he wants. Bring him back. I think. Let's take a look at the outfield because we did sign Conforto. Big news. If you're wondering, does this take us out of the Teoscar sweepstakes? No, it doesn't. They already reported that. Conforto is just essentially a platoon bat. He's solid against righties. Just a solid play overall. So maybe you can platoon him with Kike, platoon him with Pius, whatever. The Dodgers have a lot of flexibility with Edmund playing short and center. So a lot of stuff's in the air. I think when you sign Teoscar, things will be a little more clear. So I mean, yeah, that's that. A lot of outfield news. We get an outfielder, we lose a potential target, and Teoscar is now the number one priority for the free agency class.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that last part, just in case this is someone's first time hearing the news about Conforto. It does not take us out of the running for Teoscar. It showed like the Dodgers were a little worried that fans would be upset because immediately after, multiple newsbreakers were like, "This does not take him out of the running." That was just a left-handed bat that kind of leaked it or whatever. But yeah, so I agree. Soto news doesn't move me. Um, for the Dodgers like roster build and outlook, there was no realistic world to me where he was going to be a Dodger. I am appreciative of him for making this decision so quickly relative to the rest of free agency, because we do technically have a really long time. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was 2018. Yeah, definitely the off season of 2018 going into 2019. We had Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. Um, excuse me, and one other guy that I don't remember, but I should have remembered. They were waiting for a very long time. They didn't sign until like spring training was about to start. Could you imagine if we had to wait for this Juan Soto cycle nonsense to go until February? That it would have been ridiculous. So yeah, I appreciate Soto for that. Again, fully in agreement with Teoscar. A lot of Dodger fans would have argued, and I wouldn't have necessarily disagreed with them, that he should have been priority one no matter what. And I do think he was slash is, because they they never lost contact with him. There was never a report from any media person, like regardless of affiliation with the Dodgers or not, where it was anything but they are expected to reach an agreement. They're expected to stay in contact. They like it's a mutual understanding that they want to get the deal done. Now the ball is really rolling, and I do also agree with your point about if we're coming back to you guys on Friday and there's still no deal, I'm like legitimately worried about that, because this should be a Teoscar gets his best offer from the Red Sox and the Yankees, the two teams that lost out on Soto. And then when he gets those offers, he brings it to the Dodgers and say, "What can you do?" Dodgers give him the offer and he signs. That's what I'm expecting to happen. So I think we're recording this on Sunday night. I think before the winter meetings are over, which I think is Tuesday or Wednesday, like he should be a Dodger. And if beyond that, we'll address it. But that would be a little nervous time. Don't think it's going to happen. So on to the outfield in general. Michael Conforto, former Giant and Met, he signed. Honestly did not expect that in the slightest. Very surprising. Matt and I were together. We were out with our family doing something, and I saw the notification on my phone. I was like, "What the hell's going on?" They didn't have any contract details at the beginning, so I didn't know what to expect. But it's an interesting move. I'm not upset about it at all. Conforto is a solid player. I think there's a lot of not even underlying statistics, just like very like butter knifeable. Like you kind of cut out the bad, leave the good in a way that is really nice. I'm looking down because I'm looking at stats. Sorry. Home road splits for Conforto last year. At home, he had an 83 WRC plus, where it's kind of like OPS plus. That number 100 is league average. The higher you go, the better you are. 83 is 17% below league average. But on the road, 133 WRC plus. And I think that's really notable because that's something that Teoscar actually went through with the Mariners, excuse me. Seattle and I was gonna say, excuse me, I was gonna say AT&T. I think it's Oracle. San Francisco, their ballpark. Those are incredibly notorious for being difficult to hit. Like the Mariners, righties go there to die, and at Oracle, lefties go there, and it's impossible. Like if you have kind of fringe power, which Conforto does, it really. Excuse me, I was about to swear. It really messes you up. So, I think you're 2 years removed from very major surgery that kept you out from an entire season and like stopped teams from signing you at all, even like a little rehab signing. And you're going away from a bad lineup in inopportune hitting situations. You're coming into the best lineup in baseball to be a platoon. You're going to be in the best situation you can. I'm assuming platoon, but either way, this is a really low risk signing, and I like it. It's kind of like Jason Hayward 2 years ago, except he was productive the year before, and he's not 38. I love Hayward, but that we got the 100th percentile outcome from him in 23. I'm way more excited about Conforto than I am Hayward, and Hayward was actually productive for us. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on Conforto, Matt?
Yeah, it's something that we needed, but not a lot of Dodger fans, including us, talked about
Yeah,
because we're so in love with the idea of Kike. Playoff Kike is another thing, and we got to get through 162. At this stage in his career, Kike is not an everyday player. In October, he is. Pages has yet to show he can be an everyday player. So you really didn't have a left-handed bat, and this is kind of exactly what we needed. and it just screams Dodgers. I mean, like you said, removed from an injury, had a good past. Now he comes to the best lineup in baseball, coming from, like you said, a horrible place to hit. It just screams the guy's gonna have a 790 OPS. And I mean, the worst comes to worst. I mean, the last year 718 OPS, 759 OPS, and I understand that's not the only stat, but we're not gonna go here deep dive for 10 minutes. If that's the worst thing you get, it's like, okay, I mean, it's a 1 year deal. Who cares?
Yeah.
But I mean, we could be getting a great season from a guy who can hit righties, and when we face a lefty, you get Pies or Kike, whatever. It's just a good signing. I mean, there's no reason to be upset. Um, the way I look, we're focused on the outfield. The way I look at this whole team right now, Teoscar is the piece we need. If
Yeah.
we get Teoscar, everything's all right. And I mean, you could do whatever you want. Edmund at short, Edmund center. The pieces will all fall into place as long as we get Teoscar because there's so much flexibility. If we don't have Teoscar, we're kind of in trouble. Because what we're looking at with Teoscar is you have a lot of options. You can put Edmund at short, you can put Pius in center, and platoon Kiki and Conforto. You can leave Edmund in center, platoon Pius, Conforto, whatever. You can try to put Lux at short back again. You can put Mookie at short again, Lux at second. There's so many options. The team's so deep. And the one thing you didn't have on December 7th was a left-handed outfielder. December 8th, now you do have a left-handed outfielder.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty pleased with that. It's there again. There's nothing to be upset about. It's a good signing, and I mean the funny thing with the Dodgers is every single signing you make, it sounds hilarious, but there is a chance you get an all-star quality player. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just from one side of the plate. Maybe it's just a lefty hitting against righties. He has an 870 OPS, which is all-star quality. But the Dodgers can get all-star performances for about 100 games out of anybody, it seems like. So every single signing we make, you got to keep an eye out for. And this is one that could potentially boom in that way.
Yeah, it's that's a statement that I think other fans will kind of roll their eyes at. But like Tyler Anderson was an all-star. I know it's pitching and hitting,
I
but like
remember when Matt Cain became an all-star
yeah,
again in
Matt
2018?
yeah, Matt Kemp was salary dumped, and then the Dodgers were like, okay, I guess we'll take him back. And he's just an all-star. He started in the World Series. Like it's it is really crazy. And Conforto is better than nothing for sure, and not even like in a dismissive way. I mean, like he's actively has the bones to be like a legit contributor. And yeah, like you mentioned, career, even like all struggles, whatever, 838 OPS against right-handed pitching. That's perfect. We add Jock Peterson. He's not gonna have the pop, but he's more adept fielding wise. And I don't know, he'll just buy into the role. Hopefully he buys into the role. And when players do that, they have success with the Dodgers more often than not. Okay. So we go from there. Actually, do you want to I'll bring up Blake. Love seeing Trinan back. 2 years, 22 mil. I was gonna say, should we get into it deeper? I don't know how much we can get into it. I think we both really expected him to be back. Is that you felt the same way?
Yeah, I mean, when I got the alert, it wasn't even like when we get Teoscar and be like, yes, thank God. This
Yeah.
wasn't even like everyone knew this was happening.
Yeah. Truthfully, this was like the second most obvious one to Kershaw. Like Kershaw is just gonna be, oh, I wonder how much money he's getting. He's coming back. I kind of felt the same way about Blake. Figured there's no reason he would leave. He gets to go to the White House, and you know how much he's gonna love that. So yeah, super happy to have him back. I'm not like bored of it. It's just I was fully expecting this, so just wanted to mention that because I think the bigger question that we simultaneously answered and then like created a new question with the Conforto signing and again operating as if they are still going to bring back Teo, which I think they will. How you mentioned the incredible versatility in the lineup and defense we have, and I do agree that we have that. But do you see do you see the Dodgers operating with? I think Edmonds like the biggest piece here because he's so elite on defense in two major positions that the Dodgers need. One, do you think they're going to operate like as a primarily outfielder or shortstop? Like that's the first question. Second question, if you had your say, again, assuming our outfield is Teoscar, Conforto, and then all of our normal pieces, we can even bring KK into this because I think he'll be back as well. Or Chris Taylor. Like a Conforto platoon, Teoscar, and then question mark center field. What would your ideal setup be for that?
Yeah, as far as Edmund, honestly, I would like for Edmund to just kind of be an infielder or be an outfielder.
I see.
I love the versatility, but he's I mean, he's here for 5 years now with the
Yeah.
extension, and I really like. He is kind of a core part of this group. And I know Kike did it, Taylor did it, where they're kind of going back and forth. I think Edmonds earned the right to be one of the two. And like Mookie Betts did this year, if we need him, he can kick back to the outfield, and that's what he did. So I want Edmund to like be a shortstop, and then let's say, God forbid, one of the outfielders go down. All right, we need you. Rod's at short, but we need you in center. Then you can do that. But I don't want it to be like the guy travels with four gloves, and one day he's here, the next day he's there. We're like left easy at short, right easy at center. And my ideal, as of today, or not as of today, because I'm assuming Teoscar signs, but my ideal lineup would be the obvious ones, all the MVPs and all that. Shortstop, I'd have Edmund. I'd have Mookie at second, and then I'd have obviously Teoscar in left. I'd have Pajas in center, and then the Conforto and Kike platoon. That's what I'd go with, just because Pajas has already. A lot of people don't realize Pajas was incredible against lefties. Like
Yeah.
he's proved that, and he was like a top 100 prospect. He has a lot of potential, and it's to go into year two. He could really be like a solid player, like not more than a platoon, and really, the only reason is because I would probably prefer to be Lux to be an everyday player, just in terms of like the bat of his bat versus Pajas. But one, like I said, the potential of Pajas, I'd like to give him the opportunity to be an everyday player. And two, there's just not really a spot for Lux. He proved he couldn't play shortstop, and now that was coming off an ACL injury, so maybe they want to run it back. And two, I really don't want Mookie to play shortstop, if I'm being honest. So
Yeah.
Edmund is the best fit to play shortstop, and you can fill Paz in the center field. And worst comes to worst, you have an average center fielder hitting ninth, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But there's potential for him to be a good player. So, I mean, that's mine. First, obviously, you'll give yours. Secondly, if you agree, if you don't agree, does my outfield defense concern you?
That's an interesting wrinkle. I actually didn't even think of that. Okay, so I'll start by saying I think I agree with your eventual outfield alignment. I would rather have Pajes play a lot of outfield. I will say, to your second question, him in center field still worries me a little bit. I think he had a full year where he that was never his position. That like full year in the outfield, he played 100 games. I think that development can really help him, especially if they go into the season saying, "You're our center fielder." Like even if like maybe it's a platoon situation, whatever. You're gonna play center field every time you're on the field, and give him the rest of this winter and all through spring, specifically working on playing center field. I think that could help a lot better because he's very athletic. So it's not like a speed thing. It's just breeding. Center field's really really hard. And we saw so many miscommunications with him and basically every other outfielder together on balls like in the gap. Anyway, not to harp on that, but that was a good question because I hadn't even considered that. So yeah, I would have Tommy primarily at short. I I will say I think at different times players like Taylor and Kike have also deserved to like stick to that spot. But I think the difference between Tommy and Taylor and Kike, well, Taylor post 2017 because he was a leadoff hitter every day. Once they became like that true utility man, they weren't playing every day, which is actually one of the reasons Kike left because he wanted to play every day. But Tommy will be playing every day, and I think every day switching position is going to be too much. So I also think the Dodgers kind of agree with that. And my personal belief, specifically based on this Conforto signing and them still earnestly trying to get Teo back, is that I think they settled on Tommy being the shortstop because think that they like, and I also like the idea of Pajes having another full season of run because he had a blistering hot start and when we needed it the most, like super desperately. And then he was horrific for like a month and a half, almost like the James Outman kind of hit when in his rookie year, where he came out hot, was horrible, and then kind of brought it back up. He had the Pies had the 2 home run game against the Mets in a loss, but still, like he showed the the real skill that he has. And he ended up with a OPS plus of 102. Like still, it was still average, like you said. If he's the 8-9 hitter and he's league average with pop, especially again the little platoon splits, that at least you know you have a matchup advantage when you're going against a lefty. That's the worst case scenario for Pajes to me, and I think he has growth to like room to grow into a legit plus player. So yeah, I'm fully on board with Teo Pajes. I don't even want him in a platoon. I want him to just be the guy. Pencil him in. Obviously, you can give him more rest. Like he doesn't have to be a 162 guy. I think he has the potential to be, but like he doesn't have to be immediately. But that is my outfield. And truthfully, the defense again, you got me thinking about it. I think we're going to see a lot of Chris Taylor substitutions for Teoscar. We saw that a lot last year, but we might be going a little earlier in the game because especially because if Teoscar gets 4 years, which I think is possible, 3 or 4 years at least, or at least three, possibly four, you're gonna need to cover for that defense because he's just gonna keep aging. And he wasn't. There was no glaring mistakes, which I was actually really happy about because Teoscar was never a glove guy. So for that, like with that context, he wasn't as bad as I think people were expecting. But even then, there's not a lot of ground to be covered, or not a lot of ground going to be covered. Conforto's fine, but like as I mentioned, ankle injury and he's kind of getting up there in age as well. So yeah, long-winded way to say I think you kind of nailed the situation. And I again thank you for bringing the defense up because that's something I'm gonna have to think about honestly.
Yeah, I think I I'm gonna say right now I believe in Pius and I think he'll be the breakout player because watching his at bats, it wasn't James Outman where the dude swings and misses at 50% of pitches. It wasn't 2017 World Series Bellinger where they're just swinging him. They figure this guy out.
Yeah,
Pawhead, he fouled off so many baseballs this year. I mean, it was to the point where I would say I guarantee he fouls off 2 pitches back behind the plate, and he did it every single time. And it's frustrating, but it's a lot better than just he can't hit a slider, he can't hit a curveball. I think he's right there. He was a rookie. His whole life, he's been a phenomenal hitter. He came up, he was phenomenal, and he's. It feels like he's so close. And like you said, that 2 home run game against the Mets, he's shown the pop, he's shown the vision, he's shown great at bats. Remember that walk off against the Braves?
yeah,
Like he has all the instincts of a good hitter. I just saw a guy that's so close and he's fouling off these fastballs. If he can just, let's say he fouled off 100, he fouled off 100 balls. If he can get that down to 60, that's a lot more hits and his numbers go up. I think he's right there, and I really believe him, and I believe in him, and I think he's gonna be a breakout player. Because again, there's no glaring weakness in his swing and his approach. There's no certain pitch. And when he first came up, he was hitting righties really well. So I don't think
yeah,
he's gonna be one of those extreme platoon guys. I believe in Paz. I think that's my final that is my pick for the season is Andy Pajes. And I
yeah,
want him to get a full run, like you said. Like let him go, no platoon.
yeah. I think honestly that's the biggest reason for Tommy being like the shortstop, with occasional Rojas days, because they don't have anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that. Alex Freeland is like the next shortstop kind of guy. He had a pretty decent year, pretty very solid year in AAA. I think it was AAA in the minors. And he's kind of approaching the age where you can consider bringing him up. But Pajes is like a guy you trusted to be on your World Series roster. I like considering those options. It just makes the most sense to have Tommy primarily in the infield because it also shores up infield defense where Muncy is very competent but not rangy. Mookie is great at everything he does, but he's still going to be like an outfielder playing infield. So having sureness up the middle with Tommy is really like it's another thing where you just feel more comfortable knowing you have that guy in the most like important infield position in baseball. So
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry
No,
to cut
go
you
ahead.
off, but speaking of shortstops, we probably should have mentioned it. Willie Adames
Oh
to
yeah, forgot about
our
that.
hated Giants. That I mean that's a big signing for us because I mean he was when we did our ideal offseason, he was in I think mine, and I'm not sure about yours. So what do you think about
Oh
that? You
crap.
think it
Yeah.
hurts us?
I think it's good for the Giants to pretend to try and be this team that signs people. I like Willie. I'm not gonna be all fake because he went to the Giants. I liked him. You did have him on your ideal offseason. Mine was I thought that was kind of a like the Dodgers move they would make, like the big splash. Thankfully, it also in my ideal I said I would rather use that money on Blake Snell, and that's exactly what they did. So I'm very happy about that. Um, Willie's good. He's decent range still for a older quote unquote 30-year-old shortstop. Him and Matt Chapman are going to be good up there. The power's probably not going to play as well in Oracle as opposed to Miller. So that's what it is, right? Miller Field, Miller Park, whatever the hell the Brewers is. The Brewer Stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it is definitely worthy of talking about because that was like they were like so rumored together that people were making up fake contract terms like the Dodgers have already offered him or whatever before the season ended or whatever BS they're talking about. But yeah, I'm fine with it. I think as we talked about Pajes more, I'm kind of glad that they didn't get Adames. One, because the contract is very crazy. Like, if you're giving that money out, just sign Corbin Burns. Make people really mad. Because like legit, 7 years, 182, almost 200 million. I don't know how much more Burns is gonna get than that. So if you were willing to do that, just sign Burns. But yeah, I think giving Pajes the route to produce at a level that could be comparable to Adames, not power wise, but like just rate stats, OPS, and slugging and stuff. I think those are the type of cost effective moves you have to make. Like you can, because the Dodgers absolutely could have signed Adames, like for sure, and it would have shortstop for the next 3 or 4 years at least, and probably kick over to third. But despite the massive revenue they're making, you do have to make these quote unquote cost cutting moves or just cost conscious. Like, hey, Pajes, league minimum, he can be solid. We'll take Tommy at short, put Pajes at center. Hopefully, he develops and he can be something worth what Adames is making, but making 180 million less dollars. So that's just the kind of stuff we do. The more I think about it, the more I'm cool with it. And it'd be nice if the Giants can be just respectable as a team because Dodger fans are kind of getting in this Lakers Clippers syndrome. Even though I do think the Padres are way more of a legit rival than the Clippers were to the Lakers in 2020, but we're kind of forgetting that the Giants are the most hated rival of ours. Like I can't stand looking at them still. Like I think of guys like Joe Panic and Kelby Tomlinson from years ago, and it's just still like I hate them. So if they can get more respectable, like 2021, for as annoying as it was that they had that fluky little year, it was really fun. Like it was fun, like having these heated games against each other again. And yeah, so hopefully the NLS powers up because the Dodgers are going to beat them anyway. But now it's going to feel a lot better. It's not going to be like stepping on some little kid or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. It's the right move for the Dodgers to not sign him. I think if he was an outfielder, Dodger fans wouldn't really care.
Yeah.
I think as Dodger fans look too much into like the fact that he's a shortstop. I see so much about like who's our shortstop, who's our shortstop. Like why did we let Seager go? It's kind of like you realize we wouldn't have Freddie if we would have given him 300 mil, and it's like you don't your shortstop doesn't need to be a star. It doesn't need to be Trey Turner. I mean, look at you have 3 MVPs. It's the best trio. I mean, since however long. It's one of the best MLB trios ever. And you have a guy who won World Series MVP who could play great shortstop. You don't need Corey Seager at shortstop. And it was, like you said, a massive contract in Adames. And despite having Snell and hopefully Sasaki, I'd still pick Burns over Adames. Because like you said, like if Pajes has an 800 OPS this year, it's going to be right there with Adames. He has a 750 OPS. He's a little bit, or not, maybe significantly worse than Adames, but he's in the ballpark as our 7 or 9 hitter.
Yeah.
And you're saving so much money, like that we could spend on Teoscar, that we could spend on Burns. So really happy not signing him. I mean Friedman knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He makes the right decision. He knows when to spend the money. He knows not to when to spend the money. So pleased with that. And like you said, hopefully the Giants can be respectable.
Yeah. I think we should wrap it up there. We have the offseason plan kind of listed as the next thing. It was just going to be an offshoot of like what we want to do next, but we'll either save that for another video or hopefully we'll talk about it on the Teoscar resigns video. Regardless, thanks for sticking with us. More Dodger news, more Dodger coverage on the way. We'll be back. Thanks for watching. Go Dodgers.